Canyonu Geulah Moshiach from the book Canyonu Shel Moshiach, chapter 41, Kabbalah's Pnei Moshiach and Geulah. The Hiskashrus Pnimis with Melech HaMashiach. In the previous chapter, we brought the words of the Rebbe about several of the promises of the Geulah, that the Rebbe shows the meaning of them to us presently, even before the Geulah Shlema, and shows a way how to live with them as a taste and even a beginning of the matzav of Geulah. From this, it's possible to continue and to understand with a kal v'chomer about a foundational inyan, the foundational inyan of the Amida, the rising of a king from the house of David, which from his power, all the inyanim of the Geulah happened. That also this inyan, we are able and we need to find that in our present situation, and we need to live with that. And in fact, we can also find this in the words of the Rebbe, things that are in this direction. That a king from Beis David, we know, always exists throughout all the generations. It's only that throughout all the generations, it was only in a concealed way. And now the Rebbe says, and the Rebbe's words are, Yeshna kvar ha'izgalos de Moshiach. We already have the izgalos of Moshiach, who is Nasi Dereinu, the Moshiach Hayachid Shebedereinu, the leader of our generation, the only Moshiach in our generation. And therefore, there already needs to be, from our perspective, currently, the inyan of Kabbalah's Pnei Moshiach Tzidkenu, or in more specific, Kabbalah's Pnei Moshiach Tzidkenu Chakmuch Admur. Now, the main point of these things we can find in the Seder of the Sichos of Shabbos Parshas Vayera, Chayesara, Taldois, Tavshinun Beis. But we can actually also see this already in weeks that came before that, when the Rebbe is speaking about the inyan of Kiddush Levana. The Nekuda Pnimis is the emunah and the bitachon in the return of Malchus David to the way it used to be. And in the words of the Navi, Ubikshu es Hashem Alekehem ve'ez David Malkam. We say those words during Kiddush Levana. And in the weeks that follow after that, these things connect to the Rebbe's words about Kabbalah's Pnei Moshiach. And we will explain this in this chapter. Now, what is the meaning of Kiddush Levana? In the Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Noach, Dalet Cheshvan, Tavshinun Beis, the Rebbe goes into a lengthy explanation that the Yidden already did Tshuva, etc., and the Yidden are fit and ready for the Geulah Amitzvah Shlema Teika from Yad. And the Rebbe says, to quote, Ein hadavar toloi ela b'Mashiach Tzidkenu atzmai, the matter is only dependent on Mashiach Tzidkenu himself. And from this, the Rebbe continued to bring out a directive that we should actually go do, and that is that when we make cheshbon tzedek, a righteous accounting, and we come to a conclusion that the matter is only dependent on Mashiach Tzidkenu himself, this matter needs to express itself in an additional zehirus, being careful, and a hidur in Kiddush Levana. Because the Levana, we know it says that the Yidden are going to be renewed, just like the Levana becomes renewed. Shehem hasidim להתחדש כמותה. By the Geulah Amitzvah Shlema through David Malka Mashiach. And we also say the words in Kiddush Levana, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. and in more detail. First and foremost, to be careful and to put in a lot of effort into Kiddush Levana, that it should be done with respectable clothing and beautiful clothing. It should be done in the street, and it should be done with many people, but that with the more people there are, the more beautiful it is for the king. And the Rebbe says even in those places that until now they weren't so careful about this, because they happen to live between goyim, so they didn't want to do it in such a style. So the Rebbe says that should change. The Rebbe says, including also a zehirus about the time of Kiddush Levana, because we find in this that there's a difference of minhagim, and in a place where there is a question and a doubt, they should do according to what the Rav gives a directive, the Rav that's of that location. And v'oid v'ikr, the Rebbe says that Kiddush Levana should be mitoich, with a kavana miyuchedes, a specific, special intention. Why are we doing Kiddush Levana? We're doing it in order to hasten and to hurry up and to effect, take it from a yad, the coming of David Malka Mashiach. Through an addition through adding a demand and a request for the Geulah, as we end off Kiddush Levana by saying Uvikshu es Hashem Elokehem ve'ez David Malkam Amen, and they will demand, they will look for Hashem their Lord, and for David their king. Amen. Now we can go a little more, widen the explanation of the relationship that's between Kiddush Levana and the Geulah Hashlema in general, and especially to the Nekuda HaPnimis of the return of Malchus David and the revelation of Melech HaMashiach. The bracha of the Levana is mainly like the other brachas of seeing things that Chazal, our sages, made certain brachas that we should bench Hashem when we see the miracles of nature. For example, Oisei Maaseh Bereishis, and similar things like when you see lightning, or all different things that when you see it, you make a bracha in order to praise Hashem on His greatness that is recognizable by looking at His creations, His wondrous creations, and remembering Hashem constantly. But our sages revealed in this bracha that there's a deeper and more meaningful intention that's higher than that concept of all the other rest of the brachas that we make when we see things. Chazal said that Kol hamavarech al hachodesh bizmanoi keilu makabel pnei shchina. Whoever blesses the month in its right time, it's as if he was makabel the face of the Shechina. And as the explanation of the Maharsha, he says, Lefisha Yisrael begalusa einon zeichin lirais pnei Shechina or rechaika mikabelasa, because the Yidden in their galus do not merit to see the face of the Shechina and are very distant from receiving her, accepting her, greeting her. Aval chidush alavano similarly Yisrael she'em asidin להתחדש כמותה. But the renewal of the moon is a sign for the Yidden that they will also one day renew just like the moon renews. Lefa'er liyotzram bekibul pnei shchina. To, I don't know exactly what lefa'er means, to their Creator, by to praise their Creator, I guess maybe, by receiving the face, by greeting the face of the Shechina. So the Maharsha says, and therefore, when we make a bracha on the Chodesh in its right time, which this is a sign, which is a sign that we will renew like her Therefore, we are as if we are receiving the face of the Shekhinah. It's as if we are greeting the face of the Shekhinah. And as it's known that Yisrael Bechlal and the kingship of David in specific are compared to the moon, because just like the light of the moon gets bigger and stronger until the 15th day, and after the 15th it then lessens and gets smaller continuously for the next 15 days, so too Avraham began to shine, and from him until David and Shlomo were 14 and 15 generations, and that's when the moon's circle was complete. That's when it was a full moon in the time of Shlomo. For then was the highest time of the nation of Israel, and with a complete kingship. And afterwards, the kingship was divided, and it got less and less in the duration of 15 generations, until in the 15th generation was the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash and the nullification of the kingship, Bitul HaMalchus. But just like the moon again renews itself after the concealment, so too the nation of Israel is guaranteed that the kingship of David will return and will renew after the destruction and the exile. And therefore, also in the nusach of the bracha that our sages ordained, we have that in that bracha, besides for us praising Hashem on creating the moon, we also and mainly bring in the bracha about the trusting and believing in the redemption of Yisrael, the Geulah. We say Ateles Tefaaret La'amosy Vaten Shem Asidim להתחדש כמותה ולפאר ליוצרם על שם כבוד מלכותו. So I should really have an English siddur here to bring you the exact meaning of these words. But the gist of it is that we're saying here that that the Yidden are going to renew just like the moon, and they will praise their Creator and His great kingship, the glory of His kingship. So he actually explains here in the book here. He says, "Sha'amusei beten." When we say amusei beten, we're talking about the Yidden, and they're called amusei beten because Hashem carries us from the time of our birth from the womb, and the renewal of the moon after the concealment is a good sign, and Ateles Tefaaret, a beautiful crown for Bnei Yisrael, because the Yidden will renew in the future like a baby that's born from the womb, and therefore their kingship will renew and their beauty will renew because of the Eibishter's kavod. In order to lefa'er liyotzram, in order for them to praise their Creator, al shem kavod malchusay, on the name of the glory of His kingship, as it says, v'haya Hashem l'melech, Hashem will be king. And therefore, it's told over in the Gemara that when Rebbe Yehuda Nasi sent Rebbe Chia to sanctify the month, he directed him to send him a sign about the sanctification with the words, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. David, the king of Israel, is alive and exists. Because this sentence shows on the fact that the kingship of David is alive and exists in the world. And because the renewal of the moon shows on the renewal of the kingship of David, therefore Rabbi chose this sign for the Kiddush Halavana, the announcement about the everlasting kingship of David. And from that evolved the minig to say every month, by Kiddush Halavana, we say that sentence, David Melech Yisrael, Chai V'Kayim. And therefore, also in the tefillah that's at the end of Kiddush Halavana, we express the desire in the return of Malchus David, the fact that we want the kingship of David to return. And we say in Kiddush Halavana over there, we say V'yiskayim banu mikra shekasuv, there should be fulfilled in us the verse that's written, Uvikshu es Hashem alekehem ve'es David Malcolm, and they will demand to have Hashem their Lord and David their king. And as the Chazal explain on this pasuk, Tana mishum Rebbe Shimon ben Yochai, we learned in the name of Rebbe Shimon ben Yochai, Begimel dvarim ma'asu b'nei Yisrael b'yemei rechavam. In three things the children of Yisrael made a disgust in the days of Rechavam. Which things? In Malchus Shamayim, in the kingship of heaven, in the kingship of the house of David, and in the Beis HaMikdash. Says Rebbe Shimon ben Menasya, we do not show a good sign to Yisrael until they will until they will return and demand those three things. Until the Bnei Yisrael return and demand Hashem, which is Malchus Shemayim, and David their king, as it's simply Kemashmoi, he says here. This is quoted from Pirush Rashi on the pasuk Uvikshu es Hashem alekehem as David Malcolm. Now this concept receives a deeper understanding, deeper meaning, according to what's explained in the previous chapters about the Hiskashrus and the covenant, the everlasting covenant and connection of Am Yisrael with the house of David. To the extent of the words of the Rambam says, Ein melech li Yisrael elo mi beis David u'mizer hashleima bilvad. That the Yidden have no king other than the house, from someone from the house of David and from the offspring of Shleima alone. For these things are correct, are true also in the time of Galus. That the Yidden do not accept, do not take upon themselves with their desire any other kingship, and they are preserving their belief, and they are waiting for the day of the coming of Moshiach and for the tzmichas Keren David from anew. And this is the inner and true nakuda of the wait for the coming of Moshiach, the wait for the return of Malchus David Liyashna. And Malchus David is Kisei Malchus Hashem al Yisrael, the throne of the kingship of Hashem over the Yidden, as we mentioned previously, in previous chapters. And through the kingship of David is revealed the kingship of Hashem over the Yidden. And the connection of the Yidden to the house of David is in essence the connection of Yisrael to the kingship of heaven. And therefore the pasuk connects and binds them together, the demand for the kingship of heaven and the kingship of Beis David. Pasuk says, Uvikshu es Hashem alekehem ve'eis David Malcolm. They will demand Hashem their Lord and David their king, tying them together in the same demand. And all of this is emphasized when we make Kiddush Halavana, when the Yidden show their belief in the everlastingness of the kingship of David, and in their belief, their trust that the kingship of David will return and will renew, and their desire and their demand, their request to have Malchus David alone. And this is what the Rebbe is saying previously, that when we find ourselves in a time that we already finished all of the Inyanei Ha'avayda, and now the matter is dependent on nothing but Moshiach Tzidkenu himself. So then, in order to bring Moshiach B'Poyel, there needs to be an avodah that is connected with Moshiach Tzidkenu Atzmai, which is the avodah of demanding, asking for the kingship of David by Kiddush Levana. Now, throughout the generations in Galus, when we did not have the kingship of the house of David in a revealed and in a plain, simple way, so therefore the connection and the covenant of the nation of Yisrael with the house of David expressed itself mainly with waiting and asking for the return of the kingship of David to the way it used to be. But because this verse is speaking mainly about the end of the time of Galus, when the children of Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, will return with tshuva, and they will ask for Malchus David to be put upon them, so the Mefarshim explain that this pasuk is speaking about the time in which the kingship of David is already actually being returned. Is already actually returning. And Bnei Yisrael gather around the king from the house of David, who is standing, waiting to redeem them. And the Yidden that gather around him renew their covenant, their old covenant that's thousands of years old, that's between the Yidden and the house of David. And according to this, they explain that the demand of Ubikshu, as David Malcolm demanding to have David their king, is not just a wait and a request for the return of the Malchus of David in a general way, rather a request that is directed to a specific person. And he brings here that on Mitzudas David, on the pasuk, he says they will demand they will ask Melech HaMashiach, who comes from the offspring of David, and from him they will demand their request that he should be king over them. And according to this, it's possible to understand in our Inyan that, behold, like the words of the Rebbe, we currently find ourselves at the end of the time of Galus, when Moshiach Tzidkenu exists already in a revealed way, as the Rebbe said. And it's understood that already now is the time that right now, currently is the time that is fitting to what the Mefarshim explain, to the gathering around Melech HaMashiach and the Yidden connecting themselves to him, and like we mentioned before, and demanding from him to be king over them. Now, seemingly, this is also the intention of the Rebbe when he's speaking about the special kavanah that we should have by Kiddush Levana in the Inyan of Ubikshu Hashem Elokehem as David Malcolm. And if in this sikha these words did not come in a clear enough form, we had sikhas that came in the weeks that followed. And over there, the Rebbe brought it down in an even clearer, direct, straight form, in which the Rebbe connected explicitly the pasuk of Ubikshu Eis David Malcolm with the Inyan of, to quote, L'kabel pnei Moshiach Tzidkenu chak much adma, to greet, to accept the face of Moshiach Tzidkenu, the Rebbe the Shver. And as we will explain in the next parts of the chapter.